What's happening today, Guardians? Hey, look, I wanted to take a look at this raid auto rifle, Genesis Chain, man. And I tell you, man, these weapons are slick as hell. Wanted to see exactly how it worked in both PvP and in PvE, man. I went over a little bit about Chaos Dogma yesterday in PvE, and I'm probably going to go a little bit into it today as far as how it works in Crucible. But so far, I'm really liking this auto rifle right here. Fellas, before we get started today, if we can go for another 1,000 likes, man, that helps my channel out a bunch. And again, guys, thank y'all so much for coming out to the stream yesterday, having you guys stick it out with us all the way through the end, man. We had some issues there till we finally got it finished up, and I'm glad we went in and knocked it out yesterday. So without further ado, fellas, let's kick it off. Alright guys, so I want to go over this Genesis Chain auto rifle, show you exactly what I got loaded out. Again, as always with all of these weapons, I roll in curse to give you bonus damage against the fallen, but accurized ballistics is what I was loading myself on, especially up in PvP, because it enabled me to hit 33 a headshot with that focus fire enabled. So you really want to go out for accurized ballistics. I was around 30-31 with linear compensator, and around field choke area, I was somewhere around 31 to 32. You want to, like I said, hit that accurized ballistics to really maximize that impact potential. You can't really see it there as you see up top, but it does. It plays a role there. The focus fire perk, of course, when zoomed in, the weapon fires slower. If you're used to using Suros Regime, you're going to feel right at home using this weapon. Again, look at that Suros, that same concept of bringing focus fire into these auto rifles. Now, these are the two perks that I swap up a little bit. You know, Hammer Forge is really nice to extend your range a little further, but if you really want to get some flinch factor in it, especially in your ones, High Cal Rounds does a great job at staggering enemies, and so I love it using it on like Monte Carlo and stuff like that. And here with focus fire, of course, it does a pretty decent job as well. But again, it all comes down to whatever preference is and whatever map you've got going on. And then of course the focus firefly perk. This is really not a perk that I think is just overly utilized in PvP, but it definitely does a great job when it comes to weeding down ads in PvE. So let's talk about the PvE aspects of this weapon. Just like any weapon you've ever used before with Firefly on it, except this is now on an auto rifle, which surprisingly enough works out really well, man. I was really enjoying it. You were really able to utilize Firefly at all times. Not saying you couldn't utilize it before with your other weapons, but your things like scout rifles and stuff like that. You know, it's just, sometimes it's just nice to be able to lay on the R2 button, and that's what this one's been able to do. I happen to use a Mogul Loop a bunch. It's got triple tap, and it also has Firefly on it, which is a nice PvE weapon. But I gotta say, man, when it comes to weeding out ads, I think this weapon could definitely give it a run for its money as far as just being able to just chain through them all. And that's why I kind of like the name of it, man, Genesis Chain, you know what I'm saying? Because you literally just chain through all your various ads and stuff as they keep running down. And with the focus fire as well, man, it really makes that impact really hit pretty hard. And I've always been a fan of Suros Regime whenever it came to my PvE activities, man. I mean, Suros was like my bae back in the day. And yeah, so I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to pick up a weapon that pretty much was Suros all over again for me, but to have these perks that utilize so well here in PvE. Now let's talk some PvP stuff. I'm going to show you exactly how it's working there. So basically off the stats, guys, and I've got to say it's got some pretty good range, man, right off the bat. It comes from default base stat range of 40 and then a stability stat rate of 44. The 44 is, you know, subpar, but it's not terrible, you know what I'm saying? Reload's actually really good on it. Max size, I like it, man, especially with the focus fire. I mean, you don't have an option to choose off of focus fire, so you got to choose focus fires, but that extends that max size to aim assist of 55 and recoil direction of 75, which is pretty nice as well. The problem with Genesis Chain is not necessarily the weapon itself, but here in PvP, there's already so many auto rifles that could probably beat it out in 1v1 situations that I can't really see Genesis Chain just being a powerhouse PvP weapon. Now, with that being said, though, You know, I do like the perk, the Firefly perk itself, man. It was doing a really good job, and of course you combine that with the accurized ballistics to kind of bump you up a notch as well, to give yourself a little more damage. But focus fire is not something that I would say is the perk to utilize. So like if you take a weapon like Suros Regime, if you're using Suros Regime with focus fire, that actually increases its time to kill to 1 second. I mean, I'm not a fan of Suros in PvP anymore, but what I'm trying to say is that's the issue there with focus fire. Focus fire doesn't necessarily just jump up and help you out and or anything like that. It doesn't really give you a competitive edge PvP wise. Now, with that being said, especially with this archetype, because I'm normally the kind, I like the Arminus and the Doctrine of Past, so still the Claw archetype a bunch, you know, that 100 rate of fire, that 2 impact. But I've also been a huge fan here recently of Monte Carlo and that 88 rate of fire, 8 impact. But with all of that being said, if I had to choose between all of the auto rifles that are in that 77 rate of fire, 28 impact range where Genesis Chain falls under, I've got to say that I would definitely choose Genesis Chain just about every single time going into all my Crucible events. And I mean, you're going against weapons like Hurt Memory, Shadow Price, Grim Citizen, those weapons that a lot of people really like. But again, I felt like Genesis Chain was just such a smooth, engaging weapon, and especially in 6s, because that's the only place I would really load myself out with this weapon is in 6s. I felt like it worked really well with that Firefly perk to really do good. It was really doing good in Supremacy for me, because people would go in and try to be picking up stuff, and as soon as they would go in and try to pick up things, those orbs, man, I would be able to gun them down. And so, and normally that would result in Firefly and then everyone else getting affected in that immediate location, that radius of whoever I just killed. So that's a nice thing to have there on that auto rifle. So guys, I highly suggest definitely doing the raid. Again, this is a weapon that I think is going to be utilized more, not necessarily in PvP, but definitely a PvE weapon, especially for weeding down those ads, and also very utilized there in the raid itself, especially when hard mode raid does come about with that whirlwind curse, man. I feel like that's going to be such a key weapon or a key perk to have on your weapons whenever hard mode raid finally does hit. And I also believe the scout rifle that I got yesterday, man, that chaos, man, is that dogma is going to be amazing as far as DPS wise goes on bosses. I'm going to give it some more love and some more touch and see exactly how it does in a raid. I'm probably going to go back in it this evening and see exactly how it does against all the different various bosses and see what the DPS counter is. I guess it comparable to what you have on Black Spindle. You know, that's the big comparison there. Should you use, you know, of course you can use both of them. It's just a legendary, but you know, during the times whenever you've got bosses around, should you have a primary out, you know, primary them down, or should you just have your secondary out? Spindle's been pretty much king in DPS, but you know, I still want to test it out and see exactly how it aligns with one another. Anyways, fellas, get your hands on this weapon. Either way it goes, the raid weapons are finally sexy this year, man. I tell you what, the Taken King, the King's Fall raid weapons were not gorgeous at all, man. Those are the ugliest guns I think I've ever seen. So I'm so glad, man, they made these weapons look sexy. Anyways, fellas, thanks so much for coming and watching. I'll catch you guys later. Slap that like button like your mama told you right.